That's really the important question.
I did very well.
All right, then it was a successful costume. We'll see.
I'm like a Democrat, Shannon. I take what everyone else has, and I take it for myself.
I'm not going to touch that. All right, Laura, thank you very much. Hello and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. We begin with a Fox News alert. Thousands of activists flooding Capitol Hill trying to pressure key undecided senators, and they're still there tonight, vowing they will not leave until they get their way. As some Democrats want to move on from Kavanaugh, the progressive base is not ready to let go, but could their tactics cause a backlash? Rand Paul's wife, Kelly, is speaking out tonight about threats so violent she tells us she's now sleeping with a loaded gun by her bed. And the countdown's on to a series of votes on Kavanaugh beginning just hours from now. The GOP is pushing forward, refusing to bow to what it calls progressive scare tactics. Judiciary member Senator Thom Tillis is here tonight. But we begin with correspondent Leland Bittert live on the steps of the Senate at the so-called People's Filibuster. What's going on over there tonight, Leland?
Well, Shannon, much of the filibuster has ended. There's a few diehards left. When Nancy Pelosi left, so did the 30 or so protesters. In the words of one protester who showed up, she said, "I'm outraged there's not more people here." There were a lot more people here earlier today, both outside and then inside the Senate office buildings, where there were a little more than 300 arrests for people refusing to leave, although in many cases it appeared arrest was the protesters' goal. In the end, all the protests are aimed at about half a dozen senators. Here they are. First for the Democrats, Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota told a local TV station she was a no. The White House thinks they can change the mind of Indiana's Joe Donnelly. He appears a no as well, leaving Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who's up for re-election in a state that President Trump won by 42 points. He talked to reporters after leaving that secure facility senators go to read the FBI report. He said, "I tried to read as fast as I can, but I wanted to make sure I comprehended, so I was hitting on the ones that I want to make sure, and there were some more I wasn't able to get through, so I will finish up tomorrow morning." You're going to be hearing a lot about these three Republicans. If they all vote yes, it's effectively over. Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski undecided. They say they will decide in the morning, leaving Jeff Flake, who told reporters he, quote, saw no additional corroborating information in the FBI supplemental background investigation, and Flake intends to go back and read more of the reports. You're going to notice that all of the comments from senators that are undecided have been off camera, which is unusual, but it's also because of where we're able to talk to them. The secure facility inside the Capitol, where they go to read the FBI report, we're not able to bring our cameras to interview them. We can just talk to them as we would talk to somebody in a hallway. Speaking of the protests, bring in Sarah Brennan from St. Louis. You came out here about 10:30. You said you're surprised there's not more people. Do you think
I'm disappointed?
Disappointed. Do you think there's 6 senators that this matters for? Do you think it's going to happen? Is it going to change their minds?
I really hope this doesn't happen. I hope Brett Kavanaugh is not confirmed. Politics aside, if I had the opportunity to ask Brett Kavanaugh one question, it would be, can you think of a better way to send a message to your daughters and to all the daughters in America and across the country that you will be heard regardless of who you are if you're sexually assaulted?
So let me turn around for one quick. Let me ask you this. So, if this was your husband, would you be okay with how he's been treated?
Yes, I would.
Totally. So you don't see it. So if he'd been filleted on a 34-year-old allegation, you'd be okay with it?
I absolutely would. I would want to get to the bottom of it. As his wife, I would want to understand what happened. Even if he was at fault, I would want to know.
And are we at the bottom yet? The FBI says they can find no corroborating information.
No, they said they can't find any corroborating information within the limited scope of their investigation. Those are two very different things. If he was a true patriot, which he claims to be, and I appreciate that, he would fall on his sword and put America first and say, women should be heard, and back away. He'd be the hero. He'd be the hero.
At least according to his Wall Street Journal op-ed piece that came out a couple of hours ago. I think you're going to be disappointed there, and we'll see if more people show up later. In fact, there's a lot of people, Sarah included, who say, Shannon, they're willing to spend the night out here, and obviously as the votes begin tomorrow, there will be more protests and expecting more people through the weekend as well.
All right, we'll check in with them in the morning. Leland Bittert, thank you very much. All right, while President Trump was rallying Minnesota, Judge Brett Kavanaugh broke his silence. You heard Leland talk about this. He's published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal defending his appearance just 1 week ago, entitled, quote, I am an independent, impartial judge. Kavanaugh goes on to say, yes, I was emotional last Thursday. I hope everyone can understand I was there as a son husband, and dad. Let's bring in tonight's power panel. Former Hillary Clinton campaign spokesperson Josh Schwerin, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General who knows Judge Kavanaugh personally, Christy Remington, and Terry Turchi, the former Assistant Director of the FBI. Welcome to all of you. Great to have you with us tonight. I want to start by playing a little back and forth from the two top leaders in the Senate, the top Republican and top Democrat.
There's no way anything we did would satisfy the Democrats.
The idea that this should be full and thorough and open, available, is once again belied by the pettiness of the Republican side in the White House.
Christy, did they find any common ground?
I don't think so. I don't think there is common ground to be found here.
Are you worried that this is long-term damage to the country, damage to the Senate, the Judiciary Committee? I mean, these are people who are really good friends in real life, and now they're basically at each other's throats, including the protesters who are out there, and a lot of folks, tons of passion on both sides.
I think it's going to have an impact on judicial nominations for a long time to come. I think as you look into legislation, hopefully that people can get back to some bipartisan agreements in that area.
Yeah, there are some things going on. We have to remind people on the Hill there are bipartisan things going on. They don't get the headlines like this does. But, you know, Josh, let's talk about some of the other things that we've heard coming forward. Senator Dianne Feinstein, of course, the ranking member on the committee, says it's simply not credible to say that public testimony in last week's hearing is a substitute for interviews by FBI agents. Not only do senators lack the expertise of FBI agents, we were only given 5 minutes to question Judge Kavanaugh. Of course, they had hours and hours before that. They submitted more than 1,300 questions after the original round of hearings. What stone was left unturned? Because we were told last Friday, they made this bipartisan deal. Give us 1 week, let the FBI look at it, we'll be done.
And unfortunately, the FBI hasn't interviewed any more than the 9 individuals they were allowed to speak to. So there are dozens of people who have contacted the FBI and said they have credible information. Some of them might be credible, some of them might not. The FBI should investigate this and talk to those people, and then they can make a determination. This is what the FBI does. They know how to interview people. Senators are up there making political statements for the most part on both sides of the aisle. They're not investigators. We need the FBI to actually do a real investigation and get to the bottom of this, because if he's innocent, there's a cloud over his time on the Supreme Court forever. And if he's not, we need to know that, and he cannot get a lifetime appointment.
But you know that this is what the Senate Judiciary Committee does. I mean, both the Republicans and Democrats have their own staff of investigators and people, and there are 7 former prosecutors on the committee themselves. I mean, who have asked questions throughout.
Sure, but they don't have the same authority. Democrats cannot compel people to come testify. They're not trained FBI.
Well, the FBI can't either.
The FBI are trained investigators, and they can call people, and these are people who are willingly coming to talk to them. And some of them have given statements, proactively sent them to the FBI, to the committee. They're not being heard. There are, for instance, Judge Kavanaugh's suite mate at Yale says he heard one of these allegations in real time 35 years ago, or however many years ago it was. The FBI didn't talk to that person. That seems like a credible piece of information that we should know about and should be in this report that senators are now reading as they make their decision.
Okay, Terry, I want to bring you in here. How are these decisions made? Because the president has said publicly, I want them to go wherever they need to find the facts of what they're looking into, what they're investigating. There are a number of people who said, I've reached out to the FBI. I want to talk to them too. How does the FBI decide who they are going to talk to and when to wrap up this investigation?
Shannon, I was in the FBI for 30 years and involved in a number of investigations that had a lot of emotion out in the world there. And let me tell you how it's handled. It's handled like this. People get in a room, they look at everything in front of them, and they decide upon a strategy. And they decide upon a strategy that's going to get them to the truth, to the facts. They try to determine who's going to have relevant information that they can go interview and bring to bear on the situation. In this instance, I'm sure they had a lot of meetings as we were ending up last week, and both political parties were wanting them to go out and determine if there was any information out there to corroborate the allegations of the 3 people that had made complaints. Both Dr. Ford, of course, who testified for hours, and all of her information was out there in public, and certainly the 2 new complaints. And I think they've done that. I think they've gone out, they've looked at people who had firsthand information. Their names were given to the FBI by the complainants, either Dr. Ford while she testified or the other 2 people that they interviewed. And after all of that, what we find is a completely different picture when you get the facts than all of the emotion and all of the things we heard last week and all of the things printed in the paper. I'll tell you this. When somebody sits down and talks to 2 FBI agents in person, you can bet the story is going to be vastly different vastly different than all the rumors that you're hearing from people who all have agendas. And one final point. The FBI released its information. It's there for all the senators to review. The facts are the facts. They got what is out there to get. They brought it together. And unless there is anything else, this is what we have. And there is nothing to show that any of these complaints or these allegations have any facts to back them up.
Well,
I'm sorry, but if there's contemporaneous, witness who has information who said, I heard about this the night it happened or the next day, how could the FBI possibly say, oh, that doesn't matter for this investigation?
We're told that they did connect anyone who could have been an actual eyewitness and isn't reporting things secondhand or through hearsay. So we're out where we are, and now we watch tomorrow morning for the vote. Thank you all for joining us on the panel. All right, Fox News alert now. President Trump holding another MAGA rally, mentioning Judge Kavanaugh again, even as the vote counters on Capitol Hill gingerly try to bring key swing senators firmly into the fold after they were pushed to the edge by the president's comments at his last MAGA rally earlier this week. That's when he went after Kavanaugh's accuser, Professor Christine Blasey Ford. Correspondent Alicia Acuna is live in Rochester, Minnesota, with what the president had to say tonight. Hello, Alicia.
Hi, Shannon. And the president's rally here in Rochester lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. And in it, he continued to hammer Democrats for what he says is the unfair treatment of his Supreme Court nominee.
Democrats have been trying to destroy Judge Brett Kavanaugh. The very first second he was announced, and he was announced for one simple reason. He is an incredible intellect, an incredible person, an incredible talent. He's been an incredible judge because they know that Judge Kavanaugh will protect, uphold, and defend the Constitution of the United States as written.
Notably, there was no mention by the president of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, one of Judge Brett Kavanaugh's accusers. He received blowback from members of his own party and beyond when on Tuesday night at a rally in Mississippi, he appeared to mock Ford's memory of the alleged high school assault. Those comments put still undecided Republican Senators Jeff Flake, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski in an even more difficult position. But tonight, the president focused much of his energy on the midterms. Republican Jim Hagedorn is running for an open seat held by a Democrat for 12 years here in Minnesota. In 2016, candidate Trump won this district by a landslide, and even though Trump lost the state to Hillary Clinton, he was able to narrow the margin to just 1.5 points, a notable achievement for a Republican in a state that has delivered to Democrats since 1972. There are 4 congressional swing districts here. That amounts to about half the state's voters. The Trump administration's tariffs on steel imports have helped the GOP here, and farmers in the southern part of the state feel protected by the president. But if Republicans are to hold on to the House, which the Democrats are in a determined fight to regain, the president will need those suburban areas where his support has been waning. And Shannon, the president continues campaigning. He plans to be in Kansas on Saturday. Shannon.
Alicia Acuna, thank you very much. All right, and one of the stranger twists in this roller coaster of a saga involving Judge Kavanaugh, one of the key GOP senators could miss part of this whole historic conclusion to this on Saturday because his daughter is getting married. All right, joining us now live, Montana Republican Steve Daines. Wow, okay, it's good to have you with us. Everybody sort of had a little freak out today when they realized your daughter is getting married on Saturday. That's the day they think they want to vote. What's the plan?
Well, a month ago, we didn't expect this to be in conflict with this vote. But I tell you what, I just spoke with Judge Kavanaugh. I gave him a call tonight because the news was out there about the wedding. I said, Judge Kavanaugh, let me be very, very clear. My support for you has been unwavering. In fact, after spending 3 hours with that supplemental FBI report today, my support, not that it was ever waning, but I tell you what, when you look at the evidence that was presented today, there's absolutely zero corroborating evidence to support these allegations. I said, Judge Kavanaugh, I'm going to be there to vote for you as needed. And
do you have a time machine? We have
airplanes.
We do have airplanes.
So here's how it's going to work. The next most important vote's tomorrow at 10:30.
Right.
If we've got to get past that vote, and then that will set the clock here for the vote on Saturday. I've got a wedding on Saturday. My goal this weekend is to walk my daughter down the aisle and to see a new United States Supreme Court justice put on our court.
So you've got some kind of plan.
We do.
A super secret plan.
Well, no, there's nothing secret about it. Votes are held open all the time on the floor of the U.S. Senate once a vote is called. There have been some extenuating circumstances. You can go back in time in history and see where they've had to hold the vote open for a member to come back and cast their vote. Absolutely. So I'll be there. So the magic number here is 50. We need to get to that tomorrow, and then we need to get to 50 on Saturday.
Okay, otherwise we're going to be watching for you running in the middle of the night, maybe in your tuxedo.
Well, it'll be in a tux, follow the bride there to cast the deciding vote as needed. But to tell you what, we're going to find out a lot tomorrow at 10:30 in that vote.
You will.
And we've got a plan ready to go here. And I assured the judge that, Judge Kavanaugh, I've been behind you from the first time that I saw, we met together, in fact, in early July. Had a chance to spend an hour with him in my office. And then going through this process, spending 3 hours a day in the skiff, just continuing to do my due diligence as a senator. I've come to the conclusion I am solidly voting for Judge Kavanaugh. Can't wait to vote yes.
Okay, so just really quickly, I want to ask you, because some of your senators across the aisle are not as convinced. Senator Waring said this was never a full or fair investigation. Senator Kaine calling it a complete sham. I mean, others saying that it just was not legit, and so they're not going to be convinced.
Look, they're out of arguments. They are. I mean, this thing has shifted to the point now it's just desperation. And if you are fair-minded, if you take a look at what the evidence says, what these 302 investigations have produced, you'll say that these allegations are false. There's no corroborating evidence. It's a very clear-cut vote for me.
Okay, you're a yes, and we'll see how this plays out. Thanks for stopping in, and we wish you all the best to your family for this beautiful wedding this weekend.
I've got an excited daughter right now, too.
Yes, you do. Okay, thank you, Senator, for stopping in.
Thank you.
All right, protesters still flooding the streets of the Capitol tonight, and a number of Hollywood celebrities who were among them detained today during today's demonstrations. Trace is on the case tonight, and Democratic strategists, some of them may be ready to move on, but what about their base?
And no matter how this goes, they cannot keep us down. We will win.
Democrats could stumble on Kavanaugh, and that could prove costly at the ballot box, but the GOP should not bank on it just yet. Plus, Senator Rand Paul's wife, Kelly, makes an impassioned plea to Democrats like Senator Cory Booker following threats and violence against her husband. She joins us for a Fox News at Night exclusive. And stick around for Senator Thom Tillis. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee. He's read the FBI's supplemental report on Kavanaugh, and he's here to tell us all about it. Trace, what can you tell us?
Hi, Shannon. If we cut to the chase, it looks like this. The new NPR PBS Marist poll sums up their new numbers by saying, and I'm quoting here, the wide Democratic enthusiasm advantage that has defined the 2018 campaign up to this point has disappeared. For example, back in July, when asked if the midterms were very important, 78% of Democrats said yes versus 68% of Republicans. Now the gap is just 2 points, well within the margin of error. In other words, a dead heat. And experts are crediting the Kavanaugh effect. The director of the Marist Institute, which conducted the poll, says, quoting, "The result of hearings, at least in the short run, is the Republican base was awakened." And poll numbers earlier this week from Quinnipiac tend to support that premise, which has not gone unnoticed by the president, who tweeted, quote, "Wow, such enthusiasm and energy for Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Look at the energy, look at the polls. Something very big is happening. He is a fine man and great intellect. The country is with him all the way." And it appears the enthusiasm is translating to dollars. The Republican National Congressional Committee is reportedly seeing an uptick in first-time small dollar donors. And Karl Rove offered this somewhat surprising analysis. Watch it.
You'd sort of expect from the arguments we've been having that Republican men would be energized by the whole Kavanaugh issue, but it turns out Republican women are as well. In fact, they're more energized by it than are Democratic women.
That said, Democratic strategists are now warning members to quickly move away from the Kavanaugh nomination after the confirmation vote, which could be a tall order, considering the ongoing vigils and protests on Capitol Hill. And the Democratic base, including celebrities like Michael Stipe and Alicia Keys, are vowing to fight on. Today, model and actress Emily Ratajkowski tweeted, quote, "Today I was arrested protesting the Supreme Court nomination of Brett Kavanaugh, a man who has been accused by multiple women of sexual assault. Men who hurt women can no longer be placed in positions of power." If or when Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed to the High Court, it's possible the tone and tenor on the left may soften.
but it certainly won't be immediate. Shannon.
All right, Trace, thank you very much. President Trump fired up his MAGA rally tonight over brand new poll numbers. You heard him there. And more.
Their rage-fueled resistance is starting to backfire at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Up 11, up 10, up 14. Nobody's ever seen this before.
Fox News politics editor Chris Steyerwalt is here to weigh in. Chris, well, okay, you look like you have something to say.
No, I had forgotten about the enjoyment of Donald Trump making up stuff about polls from the 2016 election.
All right, now, you and I have had this conversation before, but let's just say most humans in America and around the world did not think he had a chance to win.
No, neither did he.
According to the polls that you were looking at.
Neither did he. I
saw them that day. Right, they did not seem like they were going to.
That's what made it so shocking. No, I mean, the making up stuff about polls, right? It's the biggest ever. It's the greatest ever. It's the hugest, number oneest ever, most greatest. Mm-hmm. What it is for Republicans, though, is the chance to head off what could have been, and still could be, as we were saying in the break, there's still 30 whatever days to go. But for Republicans, this is an enormous boon. This is a great benefit to them because what they had was three fundamental problems. Problem one is history. Americans like divided government. Only twice since the Second World War has the president's party gained seats in the House in any midterm election. Only two times since 1946. So there's that. Then there's this, which is Democrats are fired up about Donald Trump. They hate him. They don't want him to be president. He generates enormous energy on their side. They've been enjoying the benefits of that for a long time. He's generally not that popular overall, but he also has this great intensifier effect for Democrats on the left. But the third problem Republicans had was that they were divided. Conservative, suburbanite, archetypical Republicans that we normally think of. These are college-educated, incomes more than $100,000. Those were the typical Republicans. They were not simpatico with these Trump voters who are new blue-collar, working-class white Republicans. So these two groups weren't seeing eye to eye. It results in a deficiency on enthusiasm. Then what happens? The Kavanaugh thing comes along, and it unites the Republican Party, which is really what we're seeing here. We call it enthusiasm, but what we're really seeing here is unity, because for those conservatives and those typical Republicans, Kavanaugh and the Supreme Court, very, very important. And on the other side, you have a culture war issue about Me Too and accusations and all of those things, which is the same energy that fueled Donald Trump's presidential campaign, and it works out perfectly for them to get back in the game.
I mean, that's what Senator Lindsey Graham said yesterday. Like, we've never been this unified. It's been a long time. Yep. This whole fight has unified their party. Okay, former Bush 43 administration official says this: the fight over Judge Kavanaugh is increasing base intensity for both parties, helping Democrats with white college-educated women in suburban House districts while bolstering Republicans among evangelical voters in the many rural red state Senate contests. So that's why, you know, it's interesting to look at this. It does intensify both sides, benefits Democrats in the House, benefits Republicans in the Senate. At least that's what it looks like right now.
Well, it benefits Republicans in the Senate because of the way the map works.
Right.
And there are so many, all along the problem for Democrats has been the way that this map is set up just out of happenstance and history and when they won what, they're defending too many red states. And when you do something like this, you're turning up the volume on both sides. When you get to something this divisive and this acrimonious, you're turning up the volume on both sides. So that means that if you're a Republican like Dean Heller running in Nevada, bad news. But if you're a Republican running in Missouri like Josh Hawley trying to take out Claire McCaskill, this is great news. So if you are playing out of position, if you're a Republican in a blue state or district, or you're a Democrat in a red state or district, this is bad news.
All right, well, and now it seems like we have on the trail, we have discussed the impeachment issue, but now it's not just about President Trump, it's about Judge Kavanaugh, potentially Justice Kavanaugh, too. So the I word making a big appearance in a lot of these House races, too. Because if Democrats retake, they're saying, I mean, Jerry Nadler, who would head the House Judiciary Committee, says it's probably happening.
This is the first Supreme Court appointment that takes place under strict majoritarian rules in the Senate. And guess what? Everything that we predicted that would happen with the nuclear option from the time that the Democrats started it through the acceleration under the Republicans has all come to pass, and it came to pass on the very first one.
It's like you have a crystal ball.
Karnak says.
All right, he's got ESPN. Chris, thank you very much.
You bet.
You probably do have ESPN. And ESPN. All right, a key vote set for tomorrow morning, the first step toward formally voting on Judge Kavanaugh's nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court. Chad Pergram breaks down exactly what you need to know about how this is going to play out over the next couple of days. Every hour is critical. And protesters still waging an all-night people's filibuster. We're monitoring the action on Capitol Hill.
If they had gone through that same experience, if you wouldn't have had those same emotions.
Senator Tillis has seen the newest FBI report. He is going to give us the inside scoop. That's next. Says Judge Kavanaugh should be confirmed on Saturday. Also saying the whole confirmation process has been fair and thorough. Senator Grassley then turning his ire from the Democrats straight at the media.
I would never use the word fake news. I consider you folks policemen for our democratic system of government. But I want to show you where some of you have bias. I've had demonstrators in my office for 2 weeks now. The people that were for Kavanaugh wanted to be interviewed. And they said, we're only interested in interviewing people against Kavanaugh.
Not as fired up as he gets. All right, Republican Senator from North Carolina, Tom Tillis, is here to weigh in. He also sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee. So, Senator, you've had a long few weeks.
I have. Well, it's been a long few months. If you think about the nomination was on July the 9th, and a lot of work was done in the preparation of the documents, then the hearings, 32 hours of testimony, then the follow-up hearing, and 4.5 hours in the secured facility today reviewing.
What can you tell us? Were your impressions about any part of this case changed by what you read today?
If anything, I feel like what we reviewed today in the classified setting is even further galvanized my belief that the allegations are simply not corroborated, and we need to move forward with the confirmation.
Okay, one of your Democrat counterparts, Senator Menendez, has this to say about how he views the report.
That report, if that's an investigation, is a bull investigation. The reality is that is not a full and thorough investigation.
So what do you say to those who say without Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh being re-interviewed by the FBI, or it would be their first FBI interviews, but on the same points that you all have investigated and sworn testimony they've given, it's not legit without that?
Well, I think that Senator Menendez is just going right into the marketing arm of the Democratic Party. Look, we have 7 members of the Judiciary Committee who are experienced prosecutors. We put another professional prosecutor who's been prosecuting sex crimes for almost 25 years. We did that for a reason. We wanted structure. We wanted an approach that we could present information that you would take before a judge to get an arrest warrant or to get a search warrant, and none of the data rose to a level that would that would ever allow a prosecution to move forward. There were 2 hours of testimony roughly on both sides. We asked Dr. Ford to submit any information she wanted to in the record with the advice for counsel. We gave Dr. Ford the opportunity to have an opening statement to go as long as she wanted to go, and at the end of her testimony, we asked her if she had anything more to add. How could anybody think, with 7 prosecutors, 21 members of the Judiciary Committee, another experienced prosecutor, that they're getting anything more out of it? Senator Menendez wants a delay. That's what he wants. And I think that Judge Kavanaugh has been given an opportunity to clear his good name. I thought he did a good job last week. Now it's time to vote.
What do you make of those who said he had to come with a strong defense? Obviously, he and his family, much like Professor Ford and her family and others involved in this, had been put through a meat grinder, essentially. I mean, he was fired up when he showed up. There were those who felt he shouldn't have been interrupting senators, that they claim he showed himself to be partisan. Does he have a fair chance, if he is confirmed, to go to the bench and be, have a fresh start as a justice, or do you think he's always going to be hounded by these accusations from the Democrats?
I don't think so. I think that Judge Kavanaugh has been twice confirmed unanimously well qualified by the American Bar Association. They specifically, in the recommendation, talk about his temperament. What we saw last week, we have to go back to the 32 hours of hearings where he was very respectful, very deferential, was asked some outlandish questions, interrupted a number of times before he was able to provide an answer. That was Judge Kavanaugh. That was the temperament he's going to show on the bench. Last week was Brett Kavanaugh, a man whose wife has had death threats. His 13-year-old daughter's been traumatized by this. They're dragging his good name through the mud. And we saw the man, the father, and the husband defending him and his family. And I think he did it in an appropriate manner. And I believe many of the American people believe the same.
How worried are you about the Senate healing this rift, the idea of getting back to civility, finding compromise? Where do we go from here?
Well, I told a reporter earlier today, I said the fact of the matter is the agenda that we had for the markup had Judge Kavanaugh. We obviously disagree, and most Democrats are going to vote against his nomination. On that same agenda, we have a number of bipartisan pieces of legislation that we're going to move through. There is a problem that we have to go back to, and Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham, has said this. We've got to go back and, I think, improve the reputation of the Judiciary Committee, which I think has suffered by confidentiality being breached, by the Spartacus moment, by Senator Booker publishing information that we made available within an hour or two. If I'm someone who needs the help of the Judiciary Committee, but know that I want to do it on a confidential basis, know that I expose that confidentiality, we got a lot of work to do. And I lay a lot of that blame on the Democratic members who didn't respect the process, did not respect the chair, who's got a wonderful reputation and relationships. Let's work on that first. Let's get the institution of the Judiciary Committee right, and then let's try and get some of this hyperbolic, backstabbing behavior that I see every day in the 3.5 years that I've been in the U.S. Senate out of it. The American people are tired of it, and I'm tired of it.
Yeah, I got an earful over the weekend from people who said they just can't take it anymore. And we all want to see those divisions healed. We know many of you are very close friends on either side of the aisle. Senator, thank you for coming in. We wish you the best.
Thank you.
All right, we're getting brand new details about 27-year-old Jackson Costco. He's the Democratic congressional staffer who's been charged with doxing GOP senators, and he made his first court appearance today. Rand Paul's wife, Kelly Paul, is fighting back tonight on behalf of GOP senators and their families, saying she wants Democrats to retract comments like these.
Go to the Hill today. Get up and please get up in the face of some Congress people.
All right, how Senator Cory Booker is responding tonight. Kelly Paul is here next for a Fox News at Night exclusive.